This episode of Lawyers Tell All is brought to you by the Intake Academy. Are you ready to convert more callers to qualified cases, rapidly qualify good cases, and transform unqualified prospects to advocates for your firm, whether you're able to handle their case or not? Visit www.intakeacademy.com and discover how to cement relationships with more of your ideal clients. Get them to commit to you and send you more referrals than you ever thought possible. Welcome to the Lawyers Tell All podcast, where Chris Mullins, the preeminent sales and communications consultant in the legal industry, shows you how it looks through lawyers' eyes. Here, innovators in the trenches provide powerful insights that help you connect with new clients, handle the sometimes harsh realities of the legal profession, and embrace the mindsets needed to succeed. Be sure to visit our website at www.lawyerstellall.com. And while you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, lean in, tune in, and let's take a deep dive.
Hello, everyone. It's Chris Mullins with Lawyers Tell All, and today I'm interviewing Matthew Asbell, and Matthew is going to tell you about himself. Go ahead, Matthew.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me. So I'm an intellectual property lawyer, which doesn't differentiate me much other than it's the area in which I practice. But I also serve as a professor and mentor and a frequent speaker and writer. And I think I pride myself mostly on empathizing with clients in a way where I can anticipate what their needs are going to be, and usually what ends up happening is they look out for me. So that's basically who I am, I guess.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about your practice.
So my practice is pretty broad. It's very international. Intellectual property rights, you may or may not know, right, are national typically.
Okay.
And so I do handle domestic U.S. type of, trademark, patent, copyright types of prosecution where you try to obtain the rights. And then I also handle agreements regarding those rights and then disputes between those rights. But then another part of my practice is the international aspect of protecting people in foreign countries, and then sometimes dealing with cross-border disputes in multiple countries about disputes they have in relation to the different types of rights that they own.
Okay. Now, you mentioned earlier your podcast, and then you mentioned a little bit about empathy. Why don't you talk about your podcast a little bit so people understand what that's about and they'll learn more about you at the same time?
Yeah, sure. So I've done a season of my podcast, which is called Intangify. And Intangify is intended to be about broader things than just what I do every day, intellectual property law. It's supposed to be about the intangible aspects of business. And so my guests, I've had marketing folks and employment law folks, and sometimes lawyers, sometimes business, AI people, all different kinds of people who deal with different aspects of how you make a business successful, but not dealing with the intangibles, the things that are in the business, the people, the software, that sort of thing, and how that can help businesses, right, to thrive.
So talk about that a little bit, because obviously that will have a lot to do with empathy and relationships too. So talk about that a little bit. What is your take on how relationships, empathy, the tangible, all of that comes into play with a successful law firm?
Well, in the end, getting hired as a lawyer and staying and having a client keep you as their lawyer is about the relationship, and that relationship is built on trust. So how do you establish trust and how do you keep trust? I think the best way to do that is to understand the person you're serving or the company you're serving, what their needs are, and always be looking out for them, always be thinking about those aspects. What's important to them? What are they trying to do? And having your actions and the way you communicate demonstrate that. That makes it really clear that the issue I run into commonly is I'm a lawyer in New York City, and there's a lot of my foreign clients as well as some of my corporate clients who generally have a fear of a lawyer in New York City. Like, what is it? I'm a big city lawyer, charges too much money. He's only out to try to get the money from me and doesn't really care about me. I'm just a number, right?
Mhm.
So many aspects of the things I do in my practice are about making sure people realize that I actually do care, that I actually, can turn off my timer and can reduce my fee and can do different things to accommodate a client when I understand what their situation is.
Mhm.
And then I do that proactively so that they know that I care enough to address their concerns. And then what I find is then they end up looking after me to make sure that I'm properly compensated and I'm able to, to do my work functionally and successfully.
So give me some examples on how you do that proactively.
So one or two examples that may seem kind of simple, but some of my clients, let's say in other countries, the way they communicate, what they're accustomed to when they deal with lawyers in their countries or when they deal with others in their countries, is a much less formal form of communication. They don't rely so heavily on email. They're on WhatsApp. They're on WeChat. And what those types of apps provide is an informal way to get questions answered real quickly, getting someone sort of a quick, as opposed to having to like write out an email and you don't have a back and forth, right? So if we can't have a Zoom or a Teams or a telephone call or meet in person, then we can have a quick Q&A. Oh, I was wondering about this. Oh, is this a concern? Should I worry about whatever? And so what I will commonly do, for instance, when I have Chinese clients, and I have several Chinese clients,
Yeah.
I, in all of my emails, include my WeChat QR code and invite them to connect with me. And then I respond to them when they write to me in WeChat so that they know they have that avenue for quick,
Right.
easy communication in a way that they're accustomed to.
Right. Because they're not going to, it takes care of texting, basically. Right.
Yeah.
It's fast, short, and quick. And
yeah, and it's a dialogue, right? So as an example, I have a client in Colombia who's a lawyer in Colombia, and it doesn't matter what I send over email, I only hear back from him over WhatsApp.
yeah.
So I know like, okay, I can write the email, document everything, make sure he's got a full detailed report of everything. But then I also know to ping him on a WhatsApp message with, hey, sent you an email. You've got this deadline. These are the issues. Can you get back to me?
Yeah. Right. Okay. So with regards to what we're talking about now and empathy, why is it so challenging for lawyers?
Well, I don't know that it's so challenging for lawyers as much as it's challenging for people. I'm surprised.
Yeah, all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm surprised it's so challenging for people. I think that it's quite easy to talk to someone and find out what's important to them and ask them questions and then to take the step of trying to serve what you perceive their needs to be.
Mhm.
But many people there's not a lot of training about this in law schools, for one. So
Yeah.
lawyers don't necessarily learn that other than from over time, right? From their experience. And we're, particularly in the United States, we're trained to be technicians. We're trained and told that what we need to do is have a particular skill, and that people are hiring us for a skill, right? You go to a surgeon because they can cut it out of you with that type of specialization, and they know how to do it, and they're not going to mess up.
Yeah.
Um, and skill is extremely important, right? It can't be just about you like the person or the person's empathetic with you, because if the person is not good at what they do, it's not going to matter that that they're nice. But we put such an emphasis on these types of technical skills at the expense of, how do I communicate with this person? How do I understand what their needs are? How do I help them? Or how do I help them not to get into a big mistake that they shouldn't pursue? Talk them off a ledge. I've had to do that more than once.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think through my own research with empathy over the years, a lot has to do with how you were brought up. If you didn't have a lot of empathy or in your family and it just wasn't part of it, then you're definitely gonna be hard pressed to get there, with your client relationships, even just relationships in general. And so
I'm sure that's true. Like the upbringing, although it's not purely nurture, it's also nature, because you can have a sibling who responds to that environment where, even though it was nurturing, in a way that doesn't work. I've seen that, and I know other people who have as well. You don't necessarily respond to the inputs in the same way, right? Because of who you are.
right, yeah. Well, so what do you say to attorneys that about empathy and the relationship building that might come back and say, look, I don't have a problem letting Mary know that I'm sorry she's going through what she's going through, but she can't keep calling me every single day with the same questions and the same story and crying over and over again. And at some point, I have to tell her that I got to get back to work. What do I do?
Uh-huh. So are in this hypothetical, Mary is another attorney. Mary's a client. She's a client. Well, that's a real tough one. I'm not inclined to say that I can't keep talking to Mary. And I'm also not inclined to say that, hey, Mary, every time you call and whine, I'm putting the meter on and you're going to have to pay me. Although that can discourage her, right, from doing that. But you don't want to necessarily cut off the form of communication. You need the communication.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess the answer, well, my answer, I guess, is, point it out to her, help her understand that if it's too much, then I have to charge, or that it's not going to be feasible for me to get the work I need to get done for her,
Mm-hmm.
or for others. Sometimes people get that and sometimes they don't. And then I think there's also voting with your feet, right? If somebody really overly takes advantage of you, then maybe you shouldn't be working for that person. On the other hand, and I'm dealing with this now with a client, usually the issues that I face are the opposite. Usually it's they don't feel like they can talk to me or call me. They're afraid of me. They're afraid of what they're going to get charged for. And not just me, I mean lawyers generally. And sometimes I find, and the situation I'm dealing with now, that what they really need is a quick therapy session, and it's worth it to have that call, not as a lawyer so much. I mean, as a lawyer giving some facts and some pointing out the situation in the case, but to spend a little extra time as a freebie, just to kind of know what's going on and help them process it. It's like what I'm dealing with in my case is a litigation where the person has a family history of a very negative situation in litigation and is very afraid of litigation.
Yeah.
And at the same time, really should be moving forward with this litigation. And so I have to help her to understand, not why I think it's worthwhile to keep going,
Right.
and to see hopefully the negative family history, the negative situation, as this is an opportunity for redemption.
Right. There you go. Yeah.
But also to I can't promise that I'm going to succeed. So yes, we're taking risks. If it's me, it's the right risk. And here is, how I'm going to try to help you through it. But there's a lot of fear that sometimes it's worth the extra time to counsel and to digest and align on this is why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes I think it's just re-educating them over and over and over again, just reminding them and teaching them over and over again. But also you just have to, I think you kind of said it earlier, you've got to be consistent with the intimacy of your relationship with them, in order for that trust to be there, right? I noticed in your bio, you talked quite a bit about AI. So tell us what your thoughts are about AI.
AI is, is a big topic the past, I guess, 2 years now. It has a big impact in my field in intellectual property law. There's a lot of open questions, and I belong to some lawyers organizations that attempt to address them internationally and help people understand the differences in different countries and and try to harmonize the laws, etc. Mm-hmm. But I also represent a big AI company and have to understand the things that they're doing. And I have to also think about AI in the practice of law.
Right.
How can I use it? How can my assistants use it? What's safe? And then counsel my clients who, 90% of them, 95% of them are using AI one way or another as to what the impact of the use of that AI will be on their intellectual property assets, their ability to own things, and whether they, what they should do about that. Because sometimes they don't care or they don't think they care, and then they need to be counseled as to why they should care.
Right.
Sometimes they care and they just don't realize that, hey, using generative AI to create the text of this, materials is going to mean that you don't own it.
Yeah, right. It didn't come from you. Right? Yeah, exactly. So, but where do you see AI in the legal industry?
It's in its infancy, but it is like all eyes are on it. There are tools out there already for lawyers who, to help them with AI. Eventually, and this may be unfortunate, it may replace a lot of the junior attorneys and paralegals first, and it may result in less opportunity to train people to become the sort of more sophisticated senior people over time. Because of what it can do and what you need a junior attorney to do. Sort of, this is not part of the answer to your question, but with this AI client of mine, I'm actually able to work with him to have them test out different things. And so sometimes he'll run something through his AI platform in a proprietary way that's protected, and then share with me, this was the results of the AI. I asked AI to deliver this, and then I told the AI platform that I have a really skeptical outside counsel, and I need to convince them. So please justify all of these answers, and then present that to me for me to look at it and go, gee, how would I have done this differently? And to share that, and we kind of get the benefit of it with each other.
Yeah, that also sounds like a lot of fun too.
Super fun.
It sounds like a blast, actually. But so just give me an example about the idea of AI potentially replacing, a paralegal or junior, like how you see that working.
So in let's say in a typical thing in my world, in let's say I have to give a little background to help the listeners understand, but if you're filing a U.S. trademark application, when the government reviews that application, they decide what's wrong with it, right? And they issue what's called an office action. And one of the first things that a junior associate in an IP firm or in an IP practice would typically get to do would be report to the client about what the issues are in the office action. Because if you look at an actual office action, let's say on the average, say it's like a 5-page document, which with plus any evidence.
Mm-hmm.
It may be a 5-page document. There are probably like 3 little nuggets in the entire thing that are worth capturing, and then there's stuff in it that's accurate and stuff in it that's misleading.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to filter through it and know, okay, what do I need to tell my client about? What do I like? I can send my client the office action, but they'll be confused. So
Right.
right. So maybe the best thing to do is how do I report that? And a junior associate is commonly someone who would do that type of report, or a paralegal sometimes would do that report. Here's what happened. Trademark office issued this office action. You have until March, to file a response. Otherwise, it's going to be abandoned. These are the issues they raised. Here's what we recommend doing. Please, provide your instructions. How do we should deal with it?
Mm-hmm.
That is something that, I would say AI already can do
Really fast.
within minutes. And if I'm comparing to an untrained new associate, I would say better than. So
Yeah.
if we could rely on the machine to deliver that report and not have to spend a lot of time,
Right.
and we can train the machine to also improve and be better over time, and we don't have to worry that machine's going to pick up and leave us and go to some other firm or in-house or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reason.
I know. Yeah. I see it very strongly and I support it for intake. Yeah, for intake for law firms. So even to convert, if it's the right AI, you don't want it to sound like a robot, but I see a lot of positive opportunities for it, as long as it's done the right way, So, what else would you like folks to know about you? How long you've been an attorney? Work-life balance, maybe?
Well, sure, I could talk about any of those things. Work-life balance. Look, you know what? This ties into your AI, question and comments. It is about an element of efficiency in terms of the work being done in an affordable way, to meet the client standards, et cetera. But increasingly, as we get and use the language of robotic, right? Increasingly, as we get more reliant on technology, things become more robotic. And whether it's, there are AI platforms, right, that won't seem as robotic, but in the end, there's also an emotion tied to feeling like you're not being treated as a number. That if stuff is being done with AI and it's sort of spit out in a very generic way and not customized.
Exactly. Yeah.
And there isn't a person, because while there's AI is very intelligent, it has lots of, things it can propose and ways it can do things. I don't know that it's arriving at the place just yet, or even within the next couple of years, that can replace a human's ability to empathize.
Right. Well, you have to teach it. You have to have the right person, the right expert, for example, teach the AI, right? So, that you gotta at least do that. Is it going to be perfect? No, but I don't think everybody would even go that far. I think they're just like shiny object and let's go.
But let's say the AI can do things in a non-robotic way. It's not just about that. It's also about the perception of the other person, of the client, who is who might be wondering, just like every email you now get, gee, was this written by a person? Is this real, or is this somebody trying to steal my identity, or is it, what?
Yeah. And then of course, when we go there, it's all about trust.
Yeah, and there's a tremendous amount of comfort knowing that behind whatever technology people use technology to assist them in doing tasks, that the human that they've connected with on the other side is overseeing that, is
Exactly.
thinking about them, and et cetera.
Yeah, Mary, meet Mary is my assistant, but I oversee everything I'm very aware of what's going on and all the details. And I'll prove it to you when I have a conversation with you. So that kind of thing. So yeah, absolutely. Okay. When does your season come out again? When is your next season for your podcast?
It should be the next month.
Okay. And then what about your website now? So I think you wanted to talk about that a little bit, right?
Yeah. So right. I'm at a law firm. I'm at a general practice law firm called Lippis Mathias. We have 210 attorneys, of which about 30 are intellectual property attorneys. So we have quite a large intellectual property practice. And there's a website at lippes.com, lippes.com, where I have a profile and as do my colleagues, et cetera. And that's really how my firm promotes the attorneys within the firm itself. But I also have what I'm calling a personal branding website at matthewasbell.com. So that's MATTHEWASBELL.com. And I've done a couple iterations of it, but we're about to launch the newer version of it. And it's really more about the whole person, and it goes into a lot more depth. It'll include the podcast and the podcast episodes, mentoring and speaking and all different kinds of things that law firm websites aren't really equipped to promote a single attorney in that kind of way. They do it on social media, but this will be really, where people who want to know me can know me.
Yeah, right. They can know Matthew.
Yeah, and I can learn about that.
Right. What do you love?
Well, that's a fun question. What do I love?
Ask it that way. I don't care how you. I just want to see how you answer it.
What do I love?
Come on, Matthew. What do you love?
I love intellectual property law. I love creativity and innovation. And I love helping people and having and feeling the sense of accomplishment in having done that successfully. I also love international culture and language. And so getting to work cross-border and understanding the very different cultures and expectations of clients in different places and changing my tune and learning to change my tune for those different people. I find that to be really fulfilling. But of course, I love my family. I love to cook. I love to travel. I love a lot of things.
Yeah. Well, how do you have a work-life balance if you're doing all this international traveling and everything, right? You sound like you sound like you're definitely an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah. So I guess some would say that I don't have as much work-life balance as they think is appropriate. I I don't view it as work-life balance because I don't get in work mode and life mode. For me, all these different things are happening in my life, and there are crossovers between everything. Um, I also have this really, really dynamic mother. My mother is 82 years old, and she still works as a doctor, and she goes to conferences, and she's traveled, and she's done amazing things. And she grew up as a mother at a time when women didn't work. Certainly women weren't doctors. There were very few of them. And she even received her degree like in the back room. She wasn't even allowed to, it's like the stories you hear.
Yeah.
So anyway, who she is this very dynamic person. She does do things for herself. She does have balance. She danced until she was 60 something years old, and, took ballet classes, and she takes care of plants, and she travels, and she does different things. But she's got this incredible amount of energy. And I hope and I believe that I have some portion of that energy that my mother has. And that's what enables me to accomplish and do all the things that I do and still have a life.
That's wonderful. That's
I hope it's true.
What's that?
I hope it's true.
Yeah, no, I have a feeling it might be. That sounds great about your mom. That's really, really good. That's wonderful. Well, okay. What else would you like everybody to know before we say so long?
Yeah, I don't know. I think, I think we've conveyed the message that probably practicing law in any area, right, has the benefit if empathy is involved. I think that's extremely important. I'm actually appearing on a television show with one of the masters of empathy, a hero for me, a guy named Chris Voss, who is the author of a book called Never Split the Difference.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's quite interesting. He was an FBI hostage negotiator, and he learned a different way of negotiating, and applies that, and he uses what's called tactical empathy. It's
Oh,
so
wow.
fascinating.
Oh,
I was
now,
interviewed by him recently.
yeah, I'm so excited now. I want to hurry up and end this podcast. Get that book.
I highly recommend it. It was a great read.
Yeah. All right. Well, I really enjoyed hanging out with you and meeting you and chatting, and upward and onward. Okay.
Same here. Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it, and great to meet you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So long, everyone. Chris Mullins, Lawyers Tell All. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Lawyers Tell All, where Chris Mullins takes you on a journey with lawyers in the trenches who show you the realities of what it takes to succeed in this chaotic, crowded, ever-changing profession. Remember to visit our website at www.lawyerstellall.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on Lawyers Tell All.